Most people believe their life is shaped by big decisions. The career change, the relationship they chose, the moment they said yes or said no to the opportunity that changed everything. And those moments do matter. But Shane Parrish spent years studying how the world's sharpest thinkers, intelligence analysts, elite athletes, top executives, master investors, actually make decisions. And what he found quietly dismantles the story we tell ourselves about how our lives are built. It is not the big moments, it is the small ones. The conversation you had at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday that set a relationship on a trajectory you didn't notice for 6 months. The assumption you made in a meeting that nobody challenged. And that became the foundation of a strategy that quietly failed for 2 years. The moment you reacted instead of responded. And the cost of that reaction compounded in ways you are still paying for today. These are the ordinary moments that Parrish calls the real architecture of a life, not the dramatic crossroads. The Tuesday at 3 p.m., the meeting nobody remembers. The reaction that lasted half a second and redirected the next 5 years. His book is called Clear Thinking, and it is the most precise, most immediately practical guide to upgrading the quality of your thinking in the moments that actually count, written by one of the most respected minds in the world on how smart people think, decide, and build. Let's break it. Section 1. The enemy of clear thinking. Before Parrish gives you a single tool, he names the enemy, and it is not stupidity. It is not lack of information. It is not even poor judgment. The enemy of clear thinking is something Parrish calls defaulting. Here is what he means. In any given moment, especially a moment of pressure, uncertainty, or emotional charge, your brain does not reach for its most sophisticated thinking. It reaches for its fastest. It reaches for the pattern that worked last time. The assumption that feels familiar, the emotional response, that is the easiest to produce. Given the conditions of the moment, Parrish identifies 4 specific defaults that hijack the thinking of otherwise intelligent people. The emotion default, reacting from feeling rather than responding from thought. The ego default, defending your position rather than seeking the truth. The social default, doing what the group expects rather than what the situation requires. The inertia default, continuing what you have always done, because stopping requires more energy than continuing, even when continuing is clearly wrong. These 4 defaults are not signs of weakness. They are the product of a brain designed to conserve energy by automating as much as possible. The problem is that automation was designed for a world that no longer exists, a world where the threats were physical, where the tribe's opinion was survival, where speed mattered more than accuracy. In the world you actually live in, where the most important decisions happen in conversations, in negotiations, in quiet moments of choice that nobody is watching. Speed without clarity is not an asset. It is the source of almost every significant mistake you have ever made. Section 2. Building the strengths that override the defaults. Parrish is not interested in giving you willpower techniques to fight your defaults in the moment. He argues, and this is one of the most important ideas in the book, that the goal is not to be stronger than your defaults in the heat of the moment. The goal is to build 4 strengths that make your defaults less likely to control you. In the first place, Strength 1: self-accountability. This is the foundation, and the one most people avoid, because it is the most uncomfortable. Self-accountability means seeing your own role in every outcome, especially the bad ones, without flinching. Not blame, not guilt. Clear, honest assessment of what you contributed to the situation and what you would do differently if you could design it again. Parrish documents how consistently the people who improve the fastest are the ones who hold the clearest mirror, who look at their failures as information about their thinking rather than evidence about their worth. The person who externalizes every failure cannot learn from it. The person who owns their thinking, even when it hurts, is the one who actually gets better. Strength 2, self-knowledge. You cannot manage a default you cannot see. Parrish argues that the single most powerful cognitive upgrade available to anyone is a precise, honest understanding of their own patterns, the situations that reliably trigger the emotion default, the topics that activate the ego default, the social contexts that pull the social default like a lever. When you know your patterns, specifically, not generally, you can build what Parrish calls a decision tripwire, a pre-committed signal that tells you this is a moment to slow down and choose consciously, rather than react automatically. The person without self-knowledge gets ambushed by their defaults. The person with it sees them coming far enough in advance to choose differently. Strength 3, self-control, not willpower in the moment, which Parrish regards as unreliable. Environmental design, the practice of arranging your life so that the right choice is the easy choice and the default choice is the one you would have chosen consciously anyway. Remove the decision from the moment of temptation. Make the commitment in advance when you are calm, clear, and not under pressure, so that the heated moment has fewer choices available to it. Not fighting the default, redesigning the environment so the default points somewhere useful. Strength 4, self-confidence. Parrish draws a crucial distinction between the confidence that shuts down thinking, the arrogance that already knows the answer, and the confidence that enables it. The confidence that says, I can handle being wrong, I can sit with uncertainty, I can follow the evidence, even when it contradicts my position, because my identity is not attached to being right about this. That form of confidence is rare, and it is the one that produces genuinely superior thinking because it removes the ego's veto over what the mind is allowed to consider. Section 3, the decision framework. Once you have built the 4 strengths, Parrish gives you the thinking tools for the moments that matter. Tool 1, identify the moment before the moment. This is one of the most practically useful ideas. In the entire book, Parrish argues that the critical decision, in most situations, is not the obvious one. It is the decision made immediately before, the one that determined what options were available when the obvious moment arrived. You didn't decide to react angrily in the meeting. You decided 3 days earlier to go in underprepared and overconfident. You didn't decide to make the bad investment. You decided 6 months before to enter a relationship with someone whose interests were not aligned with yours. The moment before the moment is almost always where the real decision was actually made, and the person who learns to identify it, who asks not just what should I do now, but what earlier decision created this situation, gains the ability to intervene at the level where interventions are most effective. Tool 2, think through time. Parrish introduces a framework he calls temporal thinking, the practice of evaluating decisions not just for their immediate effect, but across 3 time horizons. What does this decision produce in 10 minutes, in 10 months, in 10 years? Most people optimize only for the first. The most effective thinkers naturally weight all 3, and they are especially attentive to decisions that feel good at 10 minutes, but degrade at 10 months, and are catastrophic at 10 years. Almost every significant mistake in business, relationships, and personal development passes the 10-minute test and fails the 10-year one. Tool 3, the position versus the goal. This is the insight Parrish considers the most immediately actionable in any situation where you are about to argue, negotiate, or defend a position. Ask yourself one clarifying question first. What am I actually trying to achieve here? Not win the argument, not be right, not prove the point. What is the actual goal? In this relationship, this negotiation, this team dynamic, that this conversation is supposed to serve, Parrish documents how consistently high performers will abandon a position, willingly, without ego cost, the moment they recognize that the position is in conflict with the goal, and how consistently average thinkers will sacrifice the goal to protect the position. One is thinking, the other is defaulting. The difference is the question, asked before the conversation begins. Tool 4, create space before responding. This is the simplest tool in the book, and the one with the most immediate practical value. In any situation of emotional charge, before you send the reply, before you make the decision, before you speak the response that has already formed in your mouth, create a gap, not a long one, sometimes a single breath, sometimes 24 hours. The gap is not passive. It is the space where the default loses momentum and the considered response gets enough room to form. Parrish quotes Viktor Frankl on the space between stimulus and response and makes the same point that Covey made with Habit 1, but with a practical specificity that makes it immediately applicable. The gap is a skill, and like all skills, it gets stronger with deliberate practice. Section 4, the reframe that changes everything. Here is the idea from this book I want you to carry beyond this video. Parrish argues that most people think about thinking the wrong way. They treat good judgment as a talent, something some people have, and others simply don't. They look at the person who consistently makes better decisions than everyone around them, who stays calm when others react, who sees the option nobody considered, who asks the question that reframes the whole situation, and they attribute it to intelligence. It is not intelligence, it is accumulated positioning. The person who makes better decisions in the moment has almost always made better decisions in the months and years before the moment, about how they structure their time, about who they spend it with, about what they read, about what they are willing to be wrong about the standard of thinking they hold themselves to in the small, private, nobody is watching moments. Those ordinary moments, the Tuesday at 3 p.m., the meeting nobody remembers, the reaction that lasted half a second, are not interruptions to the important work. They are the important work. Every ordinary moment is a vote for the quality of thinker you are becoming. Cast enough of those votes in the same direction, and you become, without drama, without a single dramatic transformation, someone who thinks clearly in the moments that determine everything. So here is the pattern this book is asking you to break. The pattern of waiting for the big decision, the dramatic crossroads, the obvious moment of choice. To bring your best thinking. Shane Parrish's argument is quiet and precise. Your life is being built in the ordinary moments, right now, today. In the way you are responding to the email in your inbox, in the assumption you are accepting without questioning, in the default that is firing. Before your considered judgment has had a chance to arrive, build the 4 strengths, use the thinking tools, create the gap, and start treating the Tuesday at 3 p.m. with the same quality of attention you would bring to the most important decision of your career, because it might be, you just won't know until 10 years later. Now, if something in this video landed for you, if one idea made you see a recent moment differently, or named a default you recognized in yourself, I genuinely want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments below. Tell me which of the 4 defaults shows up most consistently in your life. The emotion, the ego, the social, or the inertia. Be honest, these are the conversations that make this channel worth coming back to. And your answer might be the thing someone else watching this needed to read. If this gave you something real, give it a like. 1 second, 1 tap, and it puts this kind of thinking in front of people who are ready for it. And if you are not yet subscribed, this is the channel for you. If you believe that the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life, every week one book, one breakdown, one idea that changes how you see the ordinary moments. Because those moments are the ones that count. Think differently, live intentionally. I'll see you in the next one.